Hey, this is The Hard Truth with Tony Shaffer, powered by 6 Hour Never Settle. And as a personal note, I am never out of reach of a 6 hour ever, just saying. And we are on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, also available on the America Out Loud podcast. Check us out. Our parent organization of Project Sentinel and the London Center for Policy Research. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and of course our websites, londoncenter.org and projectsentinel.net. And without further ado, our guest this week is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Dr. Corsi is a longtime scholar, someone who studies and actually provides a great deal of detail regarding esoteric factual thinking. And so today we're going to be talking about his book, The Hard Truth. The Hard Truth about energy, global warming, and climate change. So I'm very proud to have Jerry back. Dr. Corsi, welcome to The Hard Truth.
Tony, it's a great pleasure to be back with you. Thank you.
So I'd like to do this in a way that the audience actually benefits from your hard work and what you've done in your book. And I'd like to talk about a little bit about the next book too, but let's start with your current book. And let me do a framing comment. Here's my posit for our talk today. Never trust a German with a utopian dream of global domination based on his view of perfect social order. That is Klaus Schwab, if you're wondering who that is. So I think we tried this back in the 30s, just saying, I think 34, 35, we went down this road, the results were not positive. I think you'd agree with me that those weren't the best results we could have hoped for, just saying.
I would say they're not the best results, yes, I agree.
So, but I see it's to quote Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again, Jerry. I mean, I think we're back here again. So just over to you for your assessment of that.
I mean, you're right. I mean, we're into another misinformation. That's what they currently call it, or disinformation, but it's basically climate lies. And, that's why I wrote my book, The Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change. And, the subtitle is Exposing Climate Lies in an Age of Disinformation. And yes, there is a globalist agenda, and Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum are pursuing it. And basically, I've written this book to show you both how this ideologically developed and out of the environmental movement, becoming basically captured by this climate movement, which I think is Malthusian. I think it basically wants to eliminate capitalism. It's not been overtaken by Marxism. And I want to also, the book demonstrates that the science is absolutely ridiculous. Carbon dioxide, which is a trace molecule in the atmosphere, 0.004%, 41 thousandths of 0.0004%. Right. It's so small in the atmosphere, the percentage of carbon dioxide, that you can barely measure its global warming effect.
Right.
Compared to water vapor, which is like 70% of all the impact of global warming chemicals on Earth. And water vapor is not demonized because it's only burning hydrocarbon fuels emit carbon dioxide, and the real agenda has become to eliminate capitalism. And this is the demon. I mean, the book starts out by going back through the environmental movement and showing how people like Harrison Brown at the end of World War II, who was a scientist on the Manhattan Project, began writing books saying there were too many people.
Yeah. So let's go down that path a little bit. Now, for the audience to know, and this, we've spoken about this in other media, I actually have a degree in environmental studies.
Right.
You can Google it. Wright State University, Dayton, Ohio, class of 1986. And Jerry, as I've talked about a little bit during our previous discussions, I recognized as a scholar and actually someone who's credentialed. I know that's strange coming from someone on the conservative side, but I've actually taken the time to study this. And the fact is this, from the 70s on, to your point, they really made an effort to essentially hijack and then make it their religion. The whole green movement is, I think, in many ways a religion, because you have people who are consistently wrong. I remember something called peak oil that we were taught. It's like, oh my goodness, by the late 90s, we're going to be running around barefoot and cars like Fred Flintstone, basically pedaling our way across the countryside. And then no further do we have to look than Al Gore, who says every 10 years, the planet's going to die because of our inability to understand that he's right and we're wrong, not accounting for the fact that geologic history should be the judge we use, and the sun's emissions and effect on the earth should be the two big determining factors of quote unquote climate change. Instead, you have people running around with their hair on fire every time a snowflake falls in Sacramento. It's like, oh my God, it's worse than ever. It's catastrophic. Not understanding that there's something called the boring billion, where the planet Earth basically was uninhabitable because of atmospheric conditions relating to the fact that there was very little oxygen for 1 billion years. But let's not let facts get in the way of a good story. And that's my issue right now. And clearly that's what you're trying to get through, is all the, I guess, the ignorance of fact in the promotion of propaganda that essentially promotes the concepts of Marxism. Is that a good summary of kind of where we're at?
I agree with you entirely. I mean, what happened was that Paul Ehrlich in the 70s and the 80s got into this, population bomb, too many people. And he teamed up with John Holdren, who became ultimately Obama's science czar.
Right.
And Holdren said, well, if we really want to scare people, we have to find a way to say that this is going to cause a climate catastrophe. And they focused on, there are too many people were burning hydrocarbon fuels. That's going to put carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's going to warm the planet. First, they thought, by the way, Holdren and Ehrlich, that it was going to be global cooling. Then when the Earth didn't quite cool like they thought it was going to, they switched to global warming. And it has become an ideology. It's been taken over by Marxists, AOC, and that whole crowd. And now the Green New Deal is designed to scare everybody, so we can't use hydrocarbon fuels. And the point is, if we can't use hydrocarbon fuels, you cannot maintain these large industrial societies. The population of the Earth today depends on us being in an interglacial warming period. Carbon dioxide is plant food. We've got a more luscious and more productive Earth today than we will in the next ice age. I can guarantee you we won't have nearly the population boom that we've had. And the Earth can support this many people and many more. That's been, again, one of the lies. These people, and you talk about Klaus Schwab and the transhumanist agenda, where they're really going is that they think they are the elite with a secular religion. They can convince everybody to destroy the existing societies we have since the Enlightenment. They don't have to deal with science, because if they have this utopian Marxist vision, they can create the world they want.
Right.
And when the Klaus Schwabs take over, the woke, useful idiots will be the first eliminated. Klaus Schwab and his oligarchs will be happy with their machines to try to run a planet with a third or a half of the population we currently have gotten, and they won't care that they killed billions of people. I mean, it's really a very, I think, evil and satanic agenda. And what my book, I believe, does is to really show you the true science.
Right.
And you, Tony, have the background, the formal education to appreciate what I'm saying is true, in that, first of all, this whole idea of us having global warming or having carbon dioxide as a warming agent, if we did not have various kinds of warming elements in the Earth, if there weren't carbon dioxide and other water vapor, which is by far more important, the Earth wouldn't be habitable, because all the radiation that hits us from the sun would at nighttime go back into the upper atmosphere and outer space. We need this kind of blanket of global warming in order to, that's what makes the atmosphere of Earth function uniquely stable and actually supportable, supporting life, because life wouldn't be supported if at nighttime this place got, horribly cold. We wouldn't have any life on the surface of the planet.
So, let's explore that for a little bit. The reason, back in my 20s, early 20s, I actually was someone who did believe that we are obligated because of being the God-given kind of stewards of planet Earth. Our job, I think, Jerry, is to be good stewards of planet Earth. I do believe in preserving the environment. I actually got my degree based on the fact that, I think protecting the environment's a good idea. What I find catastrophically unacceptable, I guess to coin a phrase, is the fact that those right now who are in charge of the movement are doing exactly the opposite in every aspect. And let me walk through that a little bit. And I'd like you to comment on it. First, ultimately, everybody involved wants to reduce the population. They keep saying that the issue with planet Earth is there's too many people. That's just ludicrous to your point. Anybody who actually circles the Earth, visits other continents, understands the massive amount of land, the untapped resources available. And there's no danger, even with 1 billion plus people in a location, as long as you're able to adequately set up distribution of food resources and energy, people can be sustained indefinitely and very large scales. And I think the whole thing is fictional. So that's one aspect. Second is this whole idea that when you examine carbon fuel, carbon-based fuel, the planet pretty much has a supply that will go for at least another 500 years, if not longer, because the sun actually helps to drive generation. It's not the dinosaurs. It's actually the geologic and atmospheric events that are driven and powered by the energy of the sun, which helps generate the carbon fuels in the planet. So it's not like we don't know this. We do know this, but we pretend not to as part of this movement. And there's a movie that I recommend people watch. And I don't normally recommend Michael Moore movies, but it's called Planet of the Humans, where Michael Moore basically goes through and talks about how every aspect of the modern green movement is phony. If you take and examine electric cars, let's just start with that. The amount of rare earth minerals which have to go into that, everything from lithium to cobalt, requires that you basically become a colonial power going into Africa, forcing 12-year-old kids to go and out in the fields to mine cobalt for your 21st century Western civilization. I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, I don't know how that's a good idea. And then on top of that, to power the things, you have to have fossil fuel. Electric cars have to be run off of electricity. Electricity is generated by nuclear, wind, not well, very badly, hydro, which is a little bit better, or other things which relate to, natural gas. Matter of fact, notably in our conversation, the reason the United States has dropped its CO2 footprint so much over the past 10 years is because we've switched over to natural gas over other methods of burning, of producing energy, just saying. And so when you look at that, Jerry, when you look at the facts and you put them out there, it's very clear that I think the environmental movement is actually not, if just setting aside the political aspects of Marxism, which I'd like to get back into in a minute, the effort actually is causing the most damage to the environment. They do nothing about plastics. They do nothing about strip mining of lithium. And one of the facts is this: if we, the United States, move to the green economy that many folks want in the left. I mean, we're talking about California, Oregon, and all these folks wanting to have something like a quarter of all vehicles in their states being electric by 2030. To do that, move that, you would require strip mining every location we currently know about lithium just to produce the batteries, and you have to find more. And last time I checked, Jerry, strip mining is not a good thing for the environment. So what do you say to that? Just the environmental damage issue.
Well, I agree. I mean, first of all, one of the key points in my book is that oil, hydrocarbon fuels, they're not fossil fuel. They're not dinosaurs. No dinosaur ever produced a barrel of oil.
Right.
When we die, our bodies decompose. Second law of thermodynamics, the energy dissipates. It doesn't go to a higher form of energy.
Right.
We don't line a casket and say with rubber lining and say Aunt Matilda is going to turn to oil. It's not going to happen. We bury people because they decompose. The point is that I show that the earth naturally produces hydrocarbons.
Exactly.
The German chemists in the Weimar Republic, Germany had a lot of coal and did not have oil. And Germany envisioned fighting a second world war. Between the two world wars, the chemists in the Weimar Republic figured out the equations for synthesizing petroleum products, including diesel fuel, gasoline, etc. And these equations are very simple. They basically take something that has hydrogen, something that has carbon, under intense pressure and heat in the presence of a catalyst like iron ore. You form hydrocarbon chains, which include, what ultimately is refined into diesel fuel, gasoline, etc.
Okay.
But it's done naturally in the mantle of the earth on an ongoing basis.
Exactly.
It's why the peak oil, we didn't run out of oil.
And we're not going to.
I think it's, it's not that it's infinite. Nothing on the earth is infinite, right. But there is so much of it that we will be on to a new fuel before we run out of it. Look at coal. In the 1850s, the British, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, were worried we're going to run out of coal. Well, we still have an enormous amount of coal. It's not mined. It's just sitting there. Now they won't mine it because they think it's going to cause, global warming or climate change. But the point is, the earth naturally produces hydrocarbons. And you can actually see the hydrocarbons coming out of the mantle of the earth in these deep sea, deep ocean hydrotherms, which have been surveyed by, for instance, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, that affirm that the hydrocarbons are produced by this Fischer-Tropsch process, which are the equations the Germans developed in the Weimar Republic to show how oil is synthesized.
Right.
Nazis had synthetic oil.
They did.
They made the oil from coal. They had a process.
It was very expensive. It was very expensive. Yes, but they did do it. Absolutely.
And so, that's the first kind of major fallacy here. And then secondly, I think, Tony, people don't think in geologic time. I mean,
they do not.
We've had the earth around, let's say 4.6 billion years. For 80% of that time, there was nothing living on the surface of the earth. It's all the Precambrian period of time the earth did not support life. There was much more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, we've had 5 extinctions on this planet since the last 20% of Earth's history, and human beings weren't around for those extinctions. Earth is not a stable place. The dinosaurs 65 million years ago, it took a massive asteroid hitting in the Yucatan, which caused tidal waves, the tsunamis all the way up to North Dakota. It took 1,000 years of volcanic activity in India, which threw sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, blocked the sun. These are cataclysmic events that occur that produce change in Earth's fundamental weather or temperature. It's not a few degrees more of carbon dioxide.
Right.
The Earth today has less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than it did 100 million years ago.
Right.
And we've had ice ages come and go, and they are not dependent upon carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not this turning knob that affects the weather and temperature of the Earth as the left wants you to believe. That's nonsense from climate science.
So, yeah, and by the way, real quick, I got your book right here. I know the audience on the radio can't say, is it true that at the very back chapter here, it's if you scratch and sniff it, it smells like the French Laundry with Gavin Newsom? Is that true? Is that true? I mean, it may sell the book better, Jerry.
I didn't know you got one of those copies.
I did. Does it smell? That's good French Laundry.
No, yes. It has about 1,000 footnotes in it.
It does.
And the science, I explain the science in here because I want it. It takes a little effort to read the book, but it's gotten enormously good reviews by some of the top climate scientists. And one more point I want to make about the mathematics involved in this. The global warming crowd wants you to think everything is linear. We put X amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and then X degree Earth's temperature is raised. That's not how it works. The Earth's weather is a nonlinear system. In other words, you put more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it doesn't mean it's going to get warmer or colder.
Right.
The Earth could be, we've had a very mild winter in parts of the Earth this year because we are in a very circular orbit around the sun.
Right.
When we get to a more elliptical orbit, like an egg, that's when we'll have an ice age. Now, it might not happen for another 10,000 or 20,000 years, but we should enjoy this period of time because from here, the Earth gets farther from the sun in its most extreme point of its orbit around the sun. And that's when it's colder. And a little more carbon dioxide isn't going to help anything or hurt anything at that time. In fact, when the Earth enters an ice age, we may want more carbon dioxide if we could get it. Warming is good for human beings. Warming is good for life on the planet.
So, Jerry, that's a great point because a lot of folks believe that we, about 11,000 years ago, if you look at just the geologic history, as you're pointing out, Central Park in New York City was under a glacier. That's how those rocks got drugged. Right. Little stones were pushed under tons of ice on the basalt in Central Park. You can go see it. It's like it's there. You just go look. And that was about 11,000 years ago. And I'm saying right now, we are now back on the road to an ice age. In about 10,000 years, we will be back with large glaciers moving down from North America, from Siberia. It's inevitable, and there's nothing we can do about it because man is not that powerful. This is the way the universe and our solar system works, and there's nothing we can do about it. Just saying, And
the Earth is not designed to be comfortable for human beings. In other words, we're just the latest creatures walking around on the surface of the Earth.
That's right.
The Earth doesn't care about us. The Earth is ruled by some principles, which have to do with astronomy, which have to do with a lot of the sciences. But, this Earth orbit is not a stable fact. It's going to change.
Right.
And it changes predictably in these Milankovitch cycles in which we get more elliptical, but it's very complex. I mean, the Earth's axis isn't even stable at an angle. The Earth's axis kind of rotates in a circle.
Yeah.
But these things are changeable, and they're not controlled by human beings. We're not powerful enough to control these forces.
So, and by the way, I just had a beautiful, at the time we're taping this, I had a beautiful morning. It was like 76 degrees here in North Carolina. Went for a nice run. Just gorgeous weather. February. Last time I checked, it's February. So it's great. And I think it's marvelous. And so the last few minutes I want to cover, we're winding down our first half of the show here. As you put it in the back of the book, let me grab it again. You basically have all your endnotes. You kind of go through in great detail, but you basically ask, where are we going? And I know where we're going, I think. And let me posit it before you comment. Ultimately, this is about the one world government being considered or put forth by the World Economic Forum, the idea of a government, big tech lash up. Basically, that how does he talk about it? Stakeholder partnerships with unelected people, basically dictating to us how we live. And ultimately, they're using green energy, the idea that we can't be trusted by making our own decisions. You can't be trusted to buy the right kind of light bulb. Therefore, we're going to tell you what you can do. And we don't want you to have gas stoves because, geez, we don't like the fact that you can just go out and get gas and not pay attention to us. We want you to be on the grid using electric power so we can turn your power off if your social credit score indicates to us that you can't be trusted. And ultimately, that's where it's going. Am I way off base on that, Jerry? Or
I think you're 100% right. I mean, the agenda here is to destroy capitalism, to destroy the productivity of the Western countries, the United States in particular, in order to, this whole Marxist agenda is a destruction agenda. My second book, which is going to be, again, the truth about, but it'll be about neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy, and it'll be exposing this critical theory lies in an age of disinformation. I'm just doing the final editing on it right now. It'll go to print pretty soon. But the point is, the negation, communism is very good to destroy. But when the communist governments have taken over, Stalin, Mao, they literally kill millions of people.
Yep.
They have famines. They put into the rules and regulations they put into effect, lockdowns, collective property, abuse of human rights. These are things which the oligarchs, the Klaus Schwabs of the world and the multinational corporations think they want to be in power, and they consider the people basically useless. That they only need a few, especially in this age of machines, when we can have machines produce things and we don't need people.
Right.
People are needless eaters, and they're nasty, and they take up space and time, and the oligarchs have no use for them. Well, that is such an evil agenda. It is such a destructive agenda. We exhale carbon dioxide. The global warming crowd would have us believe we are our own enemy.
Right.
The next extinction, they call it the apogene. The people, anthropogene. We people are going to kill ourselves because we're exhaling carbon dioxide. It's suicidal. You can't found an ideology on suicidal principles and have it be in the benefit of human beings.
Right. So with that note, we got to take a break. We'll come back from our halftime pause and continue the conversation with Dr. Jerry Corsi. Again, we're The Hard Truth with Tony Shaffer, powered by 6 Sauer, and we'll be back with part 2 of our program in just a few moments. Hey, this is Tony Shaffer with The Hard Truth, part 2, powered by 6 Sauer, Never Settle. As I always say, I've always got a SIG close by within arm's reach, and I'm not joking. We are on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, also available on America Out Loud Podcast Network. Check us out at Project Sentinel and the London Center for Policy Research. We're available on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. I think we're on even on Truth Social and Getter as well. Our websites are londoncenter.org and projectsentinel.net. Without further ado, let's jump into phase 2, part 2 of our weekly program. And we're still, we continue over with Dr. Jerry Corsi. Dr. Corsi, as you know, we're talking about his book today, The Truth About Environmental Studies Issues and all that. We'll talk more about that. And also we have our weekly panel, the vivacious Chris Cordani, who wanted me to point out he's vivacious.
That's right. Yes.
So,
absolutely. Rally ho. Yes.
That's right. So, and then of course, the always beautiful and talented Elizabeth Breckenkamp. Hello, Elizabeth. Good to have you.
Oh, that nice. I did not pay you to say that.
It's true. No, it's true. It's true. No, you don't have to pay me to say that. So it's so anyway. So here we are, part 2. We're going to jump back in. And again, I started our show this week with the premise statement of never trust a German with a utopian dream of global domination based on his views of perfect social order. I just think that it just rings, doesn't it? I mean,
it's accurate. Let's start
accurate.
there. Absolutely.
And so again, I just don't think it's a good idea. Chris, over to you. What do you think? I mean,
I believe people should start reading more history books and less of the Zinstery books. But then what would we learn, I guess, over the years? The funny thing is, history does show your statement is true. And Klaus Schwab is, look, I'll even say this: when the EU was formed, it was centered around Germany and technically France and Britain, but basically it was a nice way for Germany to take control economically of the old Europe. That's what I say.
Well, again, let me kind of chime in here. The idea of, Hitler, of course, had lots of crazy ideologies, and they were all in terms of world dominance in Germany. Deutschland über alles, Germany above everybody. And look how it worked out. I mean, there's again another formula for a third world war, and we're doing the same thing again in terms of the left's intolerance and insistence that its ideology we all have to bow down to, and abandon the principles of Judeo-Christian ethics and constitutional freedoms that we have, and all bow down to this agenda, as Hitler demanded everybody bow down to Nazism. It doesn't work out very well at the end. And this time around, it could be a thermonuclear war with these mad geniuses want to perpetuate upon human beings.
Keep in mind, same thing with Marxism. All these Marxist governments that wanted everybody to bow down to them start trouble, or basically can't even handle running their own governments.
Yeah, I mean,
they need full compliance with the people in their citizenry. That's one thing. On the other hand, they usually put the let's just put it this way: the ideological clones in there who are not necessarily the most competent people, and they find out that their philosophies really don't fly when you have more than 20 people in one country. Look, it's nice if you're somewhere in Guyana and bring about 900 people down there and serve maybe punch with dessert, but that's about it. You can't rely on more than 900 or so people to follow you blindly and not have and not ask questions.
I don't know.
You can't shoot them down. You can't shoot them generationally. I guess Kim Jong-un is trying that.
No. I think you can look closer to home. I think a guy named Dr. Jim Jones. Wasn't Jim the guy that actually had people drink the Kool-Aid? By the way, I think that's the ultimate expression of Marxism, right? Drinking the Kool-Aid. I think that's what they're trying to do. Just saying. So,
let's
not there's anything wrong with that.
Look who his buddies were in California.
Yeah.
Okay. The socialist he actually is the poster child for the socialist movement. The fact is, that's him. And these people, a lot of these people will march in lockstep with their black masks on, doing whatever they want to do. But basically, they'll blindly follow that ideology to their own demise, to their own suffering. Not that it matters. All for the cause, basically.
So,
Right.
to that point, Jerry, you mentioned Malthusian in our initial phase one of our talk. That to me seems to be what it's all about, is that these folks have basically become worshipers. I attended a conference recently where they talked about all modern psychology essentially comes from the root of the German guys who developed this before even Freud. And basically it's all based on the idea that man is an animal and there's no spirit. And there's a lot of folks right now trying to prove that there's no real separation of the soul and man, which I listened to a thing the other night. And it's all about trying to make us no more than an animal, right? I mean, is that kind of what they want?
It's basically, I think, goes even deeper than that. That Marx was not an atheist. Marx knew God existed. He hated God. And it was a determination to have Satan rule. Satan, rules here. And it's basically to say that, the God didn't want you to eat the fruit in the Garden of Eden of this tree because God did not want you to know what he knows. And so I, Satan, can tell you, these people believe they can architect a utopia, and it has, their ideas are insane. Like, let's go fund the weaponization of a virus in Wuhan. And then when it comes out, let's tell everybody that they're going to die, even though it's a bad flu, and we'll lock everybody up in their homes and demand that they take a vaccine, which does not prevent you from getting the virus, but in fact, probably increases your chances of getting the virus and will ultimately kill you. So that's a good idea, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of ideas these people concoct.
We can get you one better, Dr. Corsi. Right now, as it stands, member nations of the World Health Organization are working on the idea of signing over sovereignty, signing over response power, pandemic response power to the World Health Organization. The Biden administration is gung-ho about this. The member nations, they're the largest to the smallest ones, many of them are gung-ho about this. They want to do this. This gives the World Health Organization, and to your points earlier in this program, the one world government types, the Klaus Schwabs of the world. It gives these people, the elites, the power to lock the world down, or at least member states. It gives them the power to force vaccinations and to act as if whatever dictatorial process or dictatorial orders that the World Health Organization, an unelected body of people selected by the UN, selected by the one world government types, tells us what to do.
Oh my gosh, what a horrible, horrible idea. And the people who told us to follow the COVID science are the same people who are trying to deny and hide the science that proves their climate change theories are all false.
Right.
So they can't even admit their own hypocrisy. I mean, it's like, I would hope that most American citizens are finally waking up and realizing they're hypocrites. They want to follow the science for one thing, but not for something else. And of course, the science for COVID wasn't even really science. And then Fauci kept coming on like every day and saying, oh, well, the science keeps changing to support COVID theories and all this stuff. But yeah, they want to deny the science that proves climate change and everything they want to push on us. Yeah, like the global thing. We want unelected people to tell us whether or not we can take a vaccine or whether or not we can take a certain medication. That's crazy.
It is.
And that's why elections matter. Votes matter.
Rule of thumb
if you
here.
can have a fair vote. But speaking of the metaphor, so you guys may think I'm totally wacky, but I'm going to go off on a tangent. There's a movie out, which I think is one of the best movies ever made, that actually helps illustrate everything we're talking about in a way that's actually very enjoyable. And I'm going to say the name, and you guys are going to probably roll your eyes, but it's Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I love that movie because if you look back at the episode of Star Trek, the original series, Space Seed is the basis for that. And Khan Noonien Singh is a product of eugenics, the eugenics war, that which we didn't have, obviously, just saying. But the concept is there was a point in history in the Star Trek universe that there was a war over eugenics, the idea that superior men and women would be the ones who rule the world. And ultimately, Jerry, I think that's where they're going with all this, just saying, because that's what they want.
It's been the idea since, it's an ancient idea. We can be God. We can put ourselves in the throne of God. Human beings, we can figure this out. And, it's the Nietzsche, Ubermensch, the Superman, the superhuman being, which we can transhumanism. We can actually engineer. We can put chips in people and make them highly intelligent. We can make them live forever. These ideas are absolutely insanity. They don't work. It's like, for instance, the globalists who want to eliminate people. Who are they going to sell their products to? Who's going to produce their product for them?
Well, I guess they figure eliminate people who buy the competition.
There's too many people. Those people are your customers. Did that ever occur to you? These people are the gene pool. Let's kill all the Jews. Okay, we're going to destroy one of the most precious gene pools in the face of the earth.
Absolutely. It makes no sense.
And commit a horrible atrocity against humanity. Why? Well, because they're the bankers, and they're the ones who put us in World War I. Another insane idea. I mean, if Hitler had not gone after the Jews would have fought for him. He would have had the bomb first. All the scientists who came over here were these Jewish scientists fleeing from Hitler. Einstein and even Niels Bohr. I mean, all these. Hitler could have, but no. Somebody should have sat down with it. How about Mr. Hitler? How about if we go kill 10? We show we killed 10. Is that okay? Because these people are going to run away. It's going to take a lot of effort to get them all rounded up. It's going to be hard to kill them all. And why don't we just have them say we did it, declare a victory, and go on? But no, Hitler had to go kill them all. And that's what we're doing again, is Tony's point. We got the same maniacs who want to perfect everything, and they're really a death cult. This is another death cult.
Right. And that goes back to Jim Jones and some other things. But let's go back to the Star Trek metaphor real quick. So if you move forward, I think I love the Wrath of Khan is one of my two favorite episodes of Star Trek, the original series, just saying. I mean, I'm a geek, yes. Just so you guys
That's all right.
I actually have the Enterprise right here next to me.
That's cool.
As long as we're not talking about 5.
Of course, I have the Star Trek The Next Generation, All Good Things, the All Good Things Enterprise that kills all the Klingons, just saying, for those who are watching, There's nothing better than seeing Riker come out of cloaked and just kick those Klingons. No, any Klingons listening, I really have no issues against you, but it was still cool to see you get your asses kicked in All Good Things, just saying. Anyway, back to my point, since I distracted myself and others. The point being is that Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan actually combines all this, because remember the core technology of that is the quote-unquote Genesis device. As McCoy says, what's better than to destroy and create all in one weapon,
Yeah.
And that's the metaphor what we're talking about here. They want to destroy everything for purposes of recreating, build back better, or build back better, as Ardennes, whatever her name is in Australia, New Zealand says, whatever. Anyway,
she'll go back to irrelevancy soon anyway.
She is. Anyway, but my point being is that if you watch that, it's great entertainment. It's probably the best made of the Trek movies. With that said, there's a great number of metaphors actually woven in. So you're actually learning about kind of the evils of utopianism while being entertained. At least I think that's my perspective on it. So I don't know.
Well, the whole issue of us trying to become God is a matter of not accepting our mortality, not accepting the fact that, unless you posit God, unless you begin to develop this kind of a moral code, we can't possibly have civilization.
Exactly.
And, and if you just study the history of the communist countries, I mean, okay, so we've got, Russia now in Ukraine. Well, Stalin had a mass starvation of Ukraine. You wonder why some of these people in Ukraine don't like the Russians. Well, Stalin starved them all in the collective farms. And you had apologists like, Durante was a New York Times reporter who went over there and praised Stalin as this great genius for his socialism and communism, putting everybody into, no private property, all this nonsense. All of these lies, and global warming is one of the biggest ones, demonizing carbon dioxide, which is, it's not a very bright idea if you understand climate science. It's really pretty laughable.
Right. So we need to start on Tony's takes, unfortunately, Jerry. We could talk about this all day, literally. And just, again, watch Star Trek 2. And by the way, for those who have not seen the series, the end of it has to do with sacrifice. One of the main characters dies. And then, lo and behold, Jerry, he's resurrected the next it's a search for Spock. He comes back. More of this. See, they've hidden all these biblical kind of.
See, that's like Jesus. Right? Yeah, he came back 3 days later.
Exactly.
Hey.
Spock is Jesus. That's a whole topic for another show, right, Chris? We should do that as a show. On your
we might be able to do that. I will say this: if you want to talk about, I've challenged everybody on this one. If you want to talk about Ricardo Montalban, so you got the con thing in me going.
Rich Corinthian leather.
The most powerful individual in television history is Mr. Rourke, and nobody can change my mind on that.
That's true.
That's right. As I said, the man faced the devil twice head on. Didn't have to throw a punch. And his suit, his white suit, remained intact, not even a scratch.
That's right.
Tony's take.
Well, my first take, obviously, is Chris is correct. And we should probably just do a whole episode at some point about Fantasy Island and the Wrath of Khan. That would be great.
That was a good show.
If we don't do it here, we do it on the lounge.
We'll do it on the lounge. I think it's a great. We should do the Wrath of Khan. We should track down someone from one of the Star Trek things and have them join us. So.
I can go with that.
All right. So, okay, Chris, what's my first take of this week?
I want to get this with you guys because it's what you were talking about earlier. I want to take a little offshoot on that. Dr. Patrick Moore has been talking about this for a while and presented this recently over the weekend at a special event. I believe it's the ICCC's 15th anniversary event, or a 15th annual event, that is. He says that the woke agenda, the woke climate change agenda, is actually destroying the ecosystem, both above ground and underground. It actually specifically pointed to wind turbines being built across the Atlantic coast since 2016. Here's this number: 174 humpback whales have washed ashore dead. That's a 400% increase in mortalities from previous years. This is washed dead from the years 2016 on to now, or at least on to when they last checked before now. That's a heck of a lot of whales. And this is all in the name of client junk science.
So, look, let me start off. I live near Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Anyone who comes down 17 from Virginia Beach and Norfolk will pass Elizabeth City on 17. And there's a huge field of these darn large windmills. And they produce energy in a limited range of air speeds. If it's either below 9 miles an hour or above 18 miles an hour, they don't work. So that limits you to a Goldilocks set of wind currents, which typically don't happen. So they're most of the time, 8 out of times I drive by, they're not moving. They're just kind of sitting there looking pretty. And I don't mean, like a pretty picture. They're just sitting there knocking down birds. And to that point, we've invested so much in these fictional technologies which produce nothing. They're always oversold. They would never produce, if not for government subsidies, they would not exist. So. Jerry, I don't know what you think about that.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I go get an electric car, and the battery corrodes, which it will probably catch fire. and then you can spend another $20,000 for a new battery.
Yeah.
Or better yet, drive it on a interstate, try to go 500 miles. Now, you're probably going to have to find a place to recharge it, and hopefully you'll be one of the lucky ones to come up to a recharging station where there isn't a long line. I mean, these technologies just don't work. The first cars made were essentially electric cars.
Right.
They were abandoned because they didn't really work. You could put a windmill on top of a car and see if the wind will make it go. I mean, these are bad ideas. And
I think it's a great idea. I think
there is a school of thought.
Huh?
There is a school of thought saying that policies like this, the climate change, these anti what they call fossil fuels policies, are designed to make us more dependent on the Chinese Communist Party when it comes to rare earths that are necessary for these electric car batteries. Let's also add the World Health Organization issue we talked about, signing over pandemic power to those people. Again, the idea is to have the West kind of succumb a lot more to the Chinese Communist Party, let's say the strongest Marxists in the world.
Right.
But that's a school of thought.
So I agree with you, but it's our policy that's done that. We, the United States, within our borders, have adequate and sustainable resources to do this. There's all sorts of untapped minerals in Wisconsin and Wyoming and Michigan. The whole country, it has all sorts of resources, but the green movement, you probably heard of them, won't let us. Let me do the Joe Biden. The green movement. The green movement won't let us actually go tap those things. And therefore, if you're going to have an industry that depends on them, you got to go to China. This is part of the policy, right, Jerry? I mean, they're doing this to link it all together.
Well, China has actually been very clever. They bought American politicians like Biden for very little money, and they own them. And this is again, and of course, this woke ideology. You can't get any newspaper, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. These are not going to, even the Wall Street Journal, certainly not Washington Post. They're not going to report the truth any longer. They're going to become an ideological agency of the woke agenda. Mm-hmm. And this is where programs like you're doing, Tony, programs like we're all trying to write these books and get this word out. They don't want the truth. They're not interested in the truth. They're interested in their narratives. They're interested in advancing a lie that they think gives them power. And the real unfortunate ones are those, going through college who are brainwashed to believe this nonsense, who think they're doing some good for social justice when they don't realize they're just being programmed to commit suicide.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah,
fair enough.
That's great. We should. We'll have another show just talking more about the youth and their misinterpretation of all these things. What's the next take? We got to keep going, right?
Okay, Tony's take. I want to take this. I want to put this on the radio because you and General Blaine Holt put together a quite excellent Newsmax article. I want if anybody gets a chance, check it out. It's on Newsmax. You can find it on our social media, the Project Sentinel social media as well. We're running out of time. Smart cities. You're right about them. Interesting toys for authoritarians in the future. I like to call them the Fisher-Price villages for authoritarians to play with in the future. Yeah. You and the General had an interesting take.
It's like Legoland, only for fascists. It's great. So it is. No, I'm serious. You kind of like little Legos. So anyway, Jerry, one of the thing focuses on what I believe is happening as a revision of feudal mercantilism. Basically, the concept is let's go back to the Middle Ages where you have landed owners, which is the elites, and peasants who basically own nothing and farm your land for you, except this is the 21st century version of it. So that's the concept.
Well, it's certainly the oligarchs want to be the oligarchs and they want to buddy up with the multinational corporations. Let's send all of our jobs to China and destroy the middle class of the United States. Well, who's going to buy the goods? Everybody's broke.
Right.
And then if you want to say, well, we don't need people, just let them die. Let's program them to die. Let's vaccinate them to die. What gives, why are you including yourself in those privileged to live? What excludes you from the principle where you're killing everybody else?
Right.
And, these are the insanities. If you look at, one of my favorite books is Charles Mackay's about, the mass illusions, the popular delusions that people get into that dominate an age. That's everybody leave their homes. We're going to walk to the Middle East and we're going to take back the Holy Land in a crusade. And so, all the men get up, they leave their homes, and nobody's there for the wives, for the children. They go for decades. They never come back. They get wandering around here and there, and they all think they're going to get indulgences and go to heaven. Now, that's really a bad idea, but it dominated an age.
Right.
Let's kill all the women because they're witches. Now that's a bad idea. You could probably,
that was just so everybody knows the Tony Shaffer Hard Truth completely says killing women is a bad idea. That is a policy position of this show.
They should be able to defend themselves in public.
That's right. That's right. So
all these things are insanity, and it is easier to sell a delusion. It's easier to sell human beings a lie than it is to tell them the truth, because the truth requires thinking. It's harder to put together. You've got to work on it. It may tell you something you don't want to hear. Lying is always an appeal to the lowest phenomenon in human beings, which is the capacity not to think and just to get overly zealous over some bizarre cause.
Right. So I hate to do that. I guess we have to break off. And boy, I guess when we talk about not thinking, you can't help but think about Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. I mean, talk about people who don't think. They're this like you go to the dictionary, their pictures are like brainless. So anyway, we got to get going. So I want to remind everybody that we are sponsored by my friends at Sig Sauer. Never settle. And Sig has been great to be our first sponsor to get us going. And they provide the American public a great resource for actually exercising safely your Second Amendment rights. We'll be doing more with them in the future. Watch this space for new announcements of new projects with them. I think we'll get some exciting things. Right, Chris? We can't talk about them yet. They're secret.
We have a lot of very good things are happening.
Very good things are happening. So just saying, you're going to be pleased with it. And so we're going to move off. And obviously, another shout out to my friend Cherie Curry, who does the music for the show. God bless Cherie. Boy, I am truly honored. We are truly honored to have her doing our music. And it's a great, people should listen to the lyrics, because she put a great deal of thought into those lyrics. And that's it from the team here, from our team, Dr. Corsi, Jerry, always an honor to have you on board. Thank you for joining us today.
Always a great pleasure. Thank you.
Right. Chris, always extraordinarily gifted, vivacious senior producer and engineer.
Rally ho.
Rally ho. And then Elizabeth, thank you as always for being here and providing
thank you.
The context for what we're trying to get to. And so we're ending it. That's it for today. The Hard Truth of Tony Shaffer. Again, we're sponsored by SIG on the America Out Loud Radio Network, and we'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us.
I woke up in a derelict delirium to a stranger's kiss and a broken opinion. With all my friends in a rock and roll